Good morning, Composition 3. As you may notice, very quickly, it is early in the morning and my voice is a little bit gravelly. When I recorded yesterday, I had a bit of a problem with the microphone being too loud. So I hope that's not a problem today, because last semester everybody was telling me that my voice was too quiet. But this semester, it's not a problem with my new microphone. In fact, sometimes it picks up too well, and there's a little bit of distortion because it's too loud. So if you were listening to the composition lecture yesterday, please turn down the volume a little bit. For today, it's early in the morning, but because of some coronavirus infections in this area, both of my children are at home and I have a dog as well. There is a small chance that one of them will burst through the door into the lecture suddenly, or the dog will whine or bark. I should have done this last night, probably, when they were sleeping, but I just don't have the energy these days to do my midnight lectures like I did last semester. So this is early in the morning. It's still quiet. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we get our 20 minutes or 25 minutes before they appear. Today, there's no homework, and neither is there homework for next week. So just relax and listen to the lecture. A few students didn't quite follow the instructions, and I tried to warn you about the fact that I wasn't going to ask you to write a complete essay until later in the semester. So I'm going to ask you to write another paragraph in a few weeks, and we're going to do an outline of an essay, but you don't have to write a full essay. So one student actually wrote, like 3 pages, which is not what I asked you to do. So the student was concerned if that was going to affect their grade. Of course, compared to people who followed the instructions and did a good job, that's not as good. So the short answer is it will affect your grade. It might affect your grade relative to other students, but if you wrote a really good 3-page paper, then I will be impressed. It wasn't the instruction. So you probably end up with a B+. That's not something that you need to be depressed about. I'm a professor of English now, and unlike some of my classmates who were academic machines and always wrote excellent papers, I was more inconsistent. And as I got older, as I became a senior, the quality of my papers improved, and this is what I expect from you too. But I got plenty of B's through my career of essay writing as an undergrad. And if we were in the class, I would bring my folder. It's actually in my office at the school, at the university. I have a brown folder of all the papers I wrote ever as an undergrad. And actually, I think I have all my grad student papers too. The actual physical paper, because back then we never submitted things by email. So I have the actual, stapled paper that's turning yellow with age, because that was more than 15 years ago. And there's a lot of A's, then there's a lot of B's, and there's a couple C's in there. So, it's usually a sort of progression with your writing development, and a B is not going to set you back so far that you can't get an A in this class. Just so you know, I'm going to email you back and give you a grade on what you wrote, and a short comment or 3. about what you did well and what you need to improve on, and you can look forward from there. That assignment is only worth 5%. So also the difference between a C and an A is almost nothing, right? It's less than 1%. Between an A plus and a B plus is less than 1%. It's 0.5%. Okay, so let's proceed with our lecture today. We're on chapter 4 in the book. Those of you who submitted your homework by taking a picture of your book, that's fine. Just make sure that there's good lighting and that you take the picture vertically, straight down, not on an angle like this or something. Just put it flat and take a picture so I can actually see what you wrote. I can sometimes in some pictures I can kind of tell that you've done the homework, but I can't read it. So you need to take a good picture or just type it. Just type your answers into a file. You don't need to write the questions. Just give me the answers, and that's good enough too. So we're chapter 4. As I said, no homework. The reason for that is because we have no midterm, and so you can not worry. You don't have to worry about that. And but you do have midterms in other classes, and midterms are always stressful, I think, but maybe more stressful when you're doing it online. Next week I'm giving a midterm. It's totally online, and you kind of have to get psyched up for it, I guess. And there's a time limit, and you have to finish your answers by the end of the timer, in my case. And if you don't, you get a 0, which is that is a disaster. That's not like getting a B on a paper. That's like getting a 0 on a paper. So that's so you can focus on that, and then when the midterms are over, we will get back to a new assignment. Chapter 4 is called Descriptive Paragraphs because the focus of this chapter is how to add detail and information to your writing. So I've said this already. I've emphasized the main thing that I want you to focus on, the number one thing in your writing is building an argument. And to make the argument easier for other people to understand, you need good organization. Okay. The content, though, it is a thing that always is going to be a big factor in how well your writing is received. And one of the ways that you can do that is to use better words, right? If you have a good vocabulary and you learn words, then you can distinguish between meanings. I do in class normally have an entire lesson about nuance, right? And nuance is a French word that basically means that the basic meaning of the word is the same, but there's a sort of contextual difference in how you use it. So, for example, the word fat. You might call me fat, and I would be not happy to hear that if you called me fat professor. That is not a compliment. If you said Professor Sullivan was Rubenesque, I still wouldn't like it because I know what the word means. It means I'm fat. But that just doesn't sound as insulting as F-A-T, fat. Rubenesque just sounds like a person who's more round than it sounds like almost like it's a shape. It's a nice shape, not a stick, because that would be somebody who was tall and skinny, but roundish, right? Rubenesque. Rotund is also a similar word that if you call somebody rotund, that means they're round. It's, Santa Claus is fat, but we don't think that's a bad thing. So we don't run around saying, oh, Santa Claus is so fat, ha ha ha, like it's an insult. We probably wouldn't call him Rubenesque either, because that just almost sounds like it's a rich person or something. He's kind of a happy, laughing fellow, He's jolly, and his belly shakes. Like these are all parts of the Christmas, story about Santa Claus that Coca-Cola helped us develop. But anyway, I think rotund might be a better description of Santa Claus' body than fat or Rubenesque. This is my opinion, but this is what nuance is. It is the ability to use different words to give different impressions. So this is essentially what's going on in this paragraph here, as they're using words to give you more information about things. Normally that would be an adjective. The three words I chose, rotund, Rubenesque, and fat, I just chose them off the cuff, actually. That wasn't my plan. But that's the way lectures go when you don't rely on notes too much. Those are examples of a body shape, right? Of being overweight. And I had a choice. There are other words too. Similarly, when you're talking about a house, you're talking about a feeling, an atmosphere, or an appearance, you have lots of choices. And you can, by making certain choices, you can make the reader understand something better, or communicate those feelings or that appearance. You can. The great thing I think I've always loved about writing is that writing enables you to send, sort of directions for somebody's imagination. This is not a creative writing class, but it doesn't matter if you're talking about Lord of the Rings and you're trying to make people imagine a village of really short people with hairy feet. It doesn't matter if you're doing that for the purpose of a story, or you're trying to make an argument and you're talking about an emergency and you're trying to make somebody understand the fear and danger of a fire, right? That's your purpose, is that you're trying to get somebody to understand how dangerous a fire is. Then describing the feeling of a person when they're trapped in a building when it's on fire might serve to improve the effectiveness of your argument, for example. And it's not just for the purpose of making somebody have the same feeling as you, it's to reinforce a point. So you just have to use it for a different purpose, but the technique is the same. So words like cozy or comfortable, or words related to temperature, warm, cool, hot, cold, balmy. I had this discussion with somebody earlier this summer. Somebody described the weather in Korea as really balmy. Balmy as something. And what they meant was humid, sticky, and moist. I mean, it's just, Korean summer is terrible. I can't stand that type of air, and we have to deal with it for like about 2 months, I guess. Now the air is cool and crisp, and that's what I like the most. Korean fall is my favorite season here, but that's the way it gets. But balmy doesn't mean that. Balmy doesn't mean hot, humid, and moist. What it means is warm and breezy. Balmy is actually more like a gentle tropical wind, almost like what a tropical country would be like in early spring, or early spring or late fall, like pre-winter, because even tropical places have their bad seasons, believe it or not. But in a tropical place in the summer, it might be steamy and hot, just like us. But if you want to imagine what balmy feels like, I always feel like you're on the beach and it's really warm and there's a gentle breeze. And that's what balmy is. It's a positive word, not a negative one. So my friend was using it out of context, and I didn't really get what he was saying, because, I got what he was saying because I could feel the terrible weather, but the word was not the one that matched. So if I was reading what he wrote, I would get the complete wrong impression. So it is important to choose the right words. And even when it comes to nuance, if you're talking about weather, if you use the wrong word, then the person is going to misunderstand. Feelings, there's so many different options here. In class, we usually just generate a huge list. We make a group and everybody thinks of as many good words as they can for each category. And a similar thing's going to happen by yourself when you're writing. You're just going to think of the best word you know for the situation and then go from there. So they actually have a paragraph as an example here. And remember, when I get you to do paragraphs, there's always going to be a purpose. There's always going to be an argument, not just description, but this is what they've written just to give you an example. Niagara Falls, which is about 45 minutes from my university. So I shouldn't say it. My university is Chungnam now. The university I went to in Canada, McMaster, is in Hamilton, Ontario, which that university is 45 minutes from Niagara Falls. So I've been there plenty of times. I grew up not far from here. But if you're Korean, it's one of the, things. You go to Canada, if you miss Niagara Falls, you didn't really go to Canada. It's one of the necessary things you have to see. Niagara Falls, a popular destination for thousands of visitors each year, is a beautiful place. When you stand at the edge and look down at the 188 feet of white waterfalls, you feel amazed at the power of nature. The tree-lined river that leads into the falls is fast-moving, pouring over the edge of the falls and crashing to the bottom with a loud roar. If you want to experience the falls close up, go for a boat ride. You'll come near enough to look up at the roaring streams of water flowing over the edge and feel the cool mist that rises as the water hits the rocks below. Seeing Niagara Falls is an unforgettable experience. Excuse me. Very short paragraph, but it is a very good description. That is what it looks like. It is white. It is fast moving. There is, this power that you just sense. It's just unstoppable. Like, what would be able to stop this water? Nothing could stop it unless occasionally, like once every 50 years, it freezes. So if it gets cold enough, it's possible to stop this thing. But if you were in the flow, you would go over in seconds and you would disappear. It's a very impressive sight. It feels like it's raining constantly because there's so much water. It spray flies up in the air, and you constantly see, if it's sunny, you see rainbows through the water, and it's always raining. So you stand next to the waterfall and you get wet. If you go on the boat down at the bottom of the falls, it's called the Maid of the Mist, the Canadian one. You have to wear a plastic raincoat because it's just, you get soaked just from the water flying up in the air. It's a great experience. I've done it at least 10 times, and I still get every time I stand at the top and look at the water just flying over the edge, I get this feeling, this sort of acknowledgement of how small I am and how powerful nature is, just like they said. So the person has done a good job of describing what Niagara Falls looks like. Now, like I said, this is just description. Why are they telling us this? There's no indication that there's a reason. It says it's from a travel brochure. So it's just telling you, this is cool. That's it. Take it or leave it. See it or don't. This is a cool experience. That's all they do. There's nothing more to it. But when we do our writing, when you submit it for me, there has to be a reason built into the paragraph. Okay, I'm not going to stop saying that. So you can see in the book there's a picture of the falls, which doesn't do it justice. Actually, the picture looks It's from far away. There's a boat. There's lots of water. It doesn't, if you close your eyes and you imagine the waterfall and standing right beside it as it crashes down, that's what I remember. This picture doesn't really do it justice. Okay. There are several other paragraphs. I would like you to read them over and stop at page 28 because next week I want to cover some things in the book again. We're going to talk about connectors next week, and I want to assign a few things for homework. So stop on page 28 and read the paragraphs over for yourself and make note of the use of adjectives to be descriptive. There's a small little exercise on 27. We're not going to do it for homework. Describing a character and describing people. There's different words for different types of things, and that is the main point for this week. Be descriptive, and that will help your writing be more effective. Okay, so that's it. It is, I guess, not as short as I expected, but it is a sort of shorter lecture this week. So after you listen to this, your work is done. You can focus on your midterms, and then we'll get back into the rhythm next week, and I'll assign some things related to transitions and connectors. Okay, we made it all the way through the lecture, surprisingly. So have a nice day, enjoy your Friday, and good luck with your midterms. See you next week.